Hey guys, it's Color27. I know I haven't done a video in a long time. I've been doing a lot of montage videos, but I hope that's keeping you, occupied for now. I was watching a couple videos of a friend about wrestling. I know, I still watch wrestling from time to time. I'm a wrestling fan. I grew up on wrestling. I'm not gonna deny that I still watch wrestling and all. But this is gonna be kind of a three-part video. I want to talk about the first wrestling company that I grew up watching, and that was WCW. Now I know it's kind of a tangent off my regular videos of movies, but there's so much movie news going on, with the Toronto Film Festival and then the Disney 23 thing that went down. I just, with the college going around, I just haven't had time to do notes and write this, and I thought this would be a good tangent off my videos for a while. So I just want to go off and say, do this wrestling video, and talk about WCW first, because that was the first wrestling company that I watched. I don't know what to say. WCW, wow, it was such a roller coaster for each and every single one of them, because it was insane. The one thing WCW had going for them was the fact that it started an hour earlier than Raw did, so I had that hour presence. But when you do that, when you have a show like that, people are obviously going to watch the first hour, which sometimes in WCW would be crap. They would have like Disco Inferno defending the television title against Perry Saturn or something like that, and then people would switch over to Raw. And they would see the most common faces. They'd see Stone Cold and The Rock and DX and New Age Outlaws and stuff like that. And I was like that. I was one of those people. But before that, before I started watching Raw, I would watch WCW. I watched WCW first for a couple years, and then I made the switch over to WWF at the time. WCW was okay. I think the best thing that WCW had was, well, for me anyway, was the cruiserweight division. They had all the luchador stars come from Mexico and perform in the States. And me, growing up in Mexico for a little bit, I actually recognized L.A. Parka, which is the skeleton guy, they gave him the nickname the chairman of WCW because he would carry around a chair. So coming from there and seeing watching the CMLL and the AAA, it was kind of interesting seeing him in WCW. And, he was kind of just a squash guy. He'd be the jobber, the mid card or the lower card guy. He'd get his ass kicked every time. But WCW was like the TNA, but worse. And by that I mean, TNA, back then, people who left WWE would go to WCW because they had nowhere else to go. And then they had WCW, when WCW was bought by WWE, they had the whole alliance invasion thing going on. So they had like a bunch of WCW guys wrestle WWE guys, and that storyline was. I don't want to talk about that because that storyline was okay for a while, and then they just kind of pushed it. But I don't want to talk about that. I'll talk about that later. But WCW had its marks. It had its trademarks. It had Goldberg and his winning streak, and it had the NWO, which was one of the most dominant fractions in wrestling. They're right up there with DX. You were either the WCW guy or the WF guy, and then you were either the NWO guy or the DX guy. And the thing that really killed the NWO, though, for me, was the fact that it had so many members. They would fill up the whole ring every time they had everybody come out, and and then they got the LWO, which was the Latino World Order, which was led by Conan, which I don't know, whatever. I don't want to get myself frustrated over that. But yeah, they had they had that. They had Goldberg, which is one of the best well-known wrestlers out there and one of the best fan-favorite wrestlers out there. And they kind of killed him with the Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar match. The dream match. It wasn't really a dream. It was kind of a nightmare for some people. And then they had other guys like DDP and Scott Hall and the Macho Man, Randy Savage, and Sting. Ultimately Sting and Ric Flair and Hogan. But Sting was the guy. Sting scared the crap out of me when I was a little kid. When he came in with the whole crow gimmick, when he would be up in the rafters with the crow on his shoulder or his arm or something. Yeah, that scared the crap out of me because it'd be dark. I'd be alone. I'd run away. I'm not gonna lie, I'd run away. I was a little girl. Every time Sting came on TV. When he wasn't wrestling. When he was wrestling, it was okay. When he was, did those gimmicks. Man. Yeah. The one thing that WCW also had was the cruise. I love the cruiserweight. I love the cruiserweight division. They had Eddie Guerrero over there, which rest in peace. He's one of the all-time greats. They had Chris Jericho when he was a cruiserweight. Juventud Guerrera, and then they did the whole Juventud taking his mask off and crap. And Dean Malenko, the man of 1,000 holds. And a bunch of other guys. It's just Billy Kidman. It's just amazing how many guys they had over there in the cruiserweight division. I think that was one of the top things in WCW that I liked was the cruiserweight division. That's pretty much it. WCW. I hardly watched WCW once Raw was on. But WCW was one of those things that everybody loved at the time, before they were bought out, and before they did the stupid storylines, and before they did all this crap that just ruined it. I think once they made it more suckier than it already was, they just kind of downfall. People might not agree with me. I'm purely making this video of things that I remember from WCW. I don't remember that much because I stopped watching it. I never watched the end match. I remember watching some of the last matches of WCW Nitro online. I watched the Sting Flair match. And I remember the last match I saw, the last pay-per-view I saw actually of WCW, and it wasn't the last WCW event that I saw. I kept watching Nitro after that. But the last WCW event I saw was Starrcade, which is the one where Sting beat Hogan for the title. And that was the one Bret Hart came out and punched the referee, and he went in and made Hogan lose. And that was the only pay-per-view that I watched for WCW. Because they had so many pay-per-views. They had so many useless wrestlers that they hardly used. If it was still around, I think most of the guys would probably end up. Most of the guys will probably, end up like in WWE Superstars or something, or they would end up in TNA, where they were wrestling dark matches, or they would end up in FCW or OVW if that's still around. I don't even know if it's still around. I don't think it's still around. They'll end up in FCW or something like that, or not be used, or just stay in WCW and not be used at all. They'd probably be like the highlighters because everybody would probably be either in WWE or TNA. But WCW, for what it's worth, it had its good moments. It had, yes, I'm not saying that it had its good moments. I'm not saying it didn't. I'm not going to deny WCW its good moments. Everybody's, from what I can tell, the most famous moment of WCW's highlight was Sting versus the Sting Hogan rivalry, and then when the NWO became two, when the black and white or the red and black, the Wolfpack, and then had and then you got rivalries like DDP and Scott Steiner, stuff like that. I don't know. There's so many rivalries in TNA. TNA. What the hell am I talking about? WCW. That just there's so many people in WCW that just made it impossible to keep track of one. But for what it's worth, WCW did have its moments. I will give them that. They had its moments. They just technically just took a downfall. It just downpoured. It's like they didn't even care after they got bought. They didn't even care anymore. I think if they cared, that would have been something. So I'm done for this video. I'll get to WWE in a moment. So don't go anywhere.